Hi, this is Linda Welsh from Linda Welsh Realty Group. Thanks for joining me today. It is now August 2025, and I want to talk to you about what's going on in our market and why buyers are finally in control again. I know this is a little scary for sellers, but sometimes putting some framework around it or some context to it helps people to understand what's actually happening in the marketplace. So number one is that this is the largest discount in 2 years. We had a crazy couple of years with COVID years and unrealistic prices and a lot of people competing for the same properties. So the average home now is selling for a lot less than it was a couple of years ago. And we don't really expect that that's going to change much unless something drastic happens with interest rates, et cetera. We think that this is probably going to go on for a while. There may not be a lot more of a correction to happen, but we also may not see a steady rise of pricing or sales for quite a while. So number two is inventory surges. So we're seeing a lot more inventory on the market. A couple of years ago, we saw in our area, 1.5 to 2 months of inventory. A normal market, an average market, is 5 to 6 months of inventory. In Austin, Texas, once you get to 3.5 or 4 months of inventory, you are already moving into a buyer's market. So what does inventory mean? That means the absorption rate. So when you have 10 homes that sold in the last 6 months, and now you have 20 on the market, that means that you have a 12-month supply. If you see 5 properties on the market and the same thing applies, then you have 3 months of inventory. So that's sort of how it looks. And so that's always a constant. Those type of algorithms are always a constant. And so pay attention in your neighborhood even what the absorption rate or the inventory rate is. Number 3 is slower sales. So we're just seeing less people jump into the market for a number of reasons. So number 1 is probably affordability. We see insurance going up. In some areas of the country, it's actually being canceled. People are trying to scramble and find ways to get insurance on their homes. And this is largely due to natural disasters, the risk of fire, the risk of flood, water damage, all of those things. Not to mention anything about global warming or anything, but natural disasters, hail, windstorms, water damage, these are all things that can increase your insurance rates. And along with it goes affordability, because at the end of the day, somebody is going to be paying property taxes, insurance, as well as their principal and interest payments. If they buy for cash, they're still going to be paying for your insurance, your HOA fees, et cetera, et cetera. So slower sales are somewhat predictable based on the economy and based on those other factors, which we don't have much control over. We really can't control insurance rates. We can't really control the taxes that much except by voting, right? So we have a little bit of an impact, but not a lot. Depending on where you live in the country, you may also have something called exemptions, homestead exemptions, which can help a little bit. You may find, as we are here, that sometimes your tax rate is starting to lower a bit, but your tax rate is compiled with your assessment or what the county says your home is worth to give your tax amount. If your assessment goes up, the value of your home goes up and the rate goes down, it may level off. If you have a senior exemption, you may see that a good majority of your taxes are actually frozen until you leave that house. And so, yes, for a lot of people, they're staying in their homes. The other point I wanted to point out is more sellers are giving concessions. This can be to help the buyer buy down the rate on their home that they're buying. That could be their interest rate. Let's say right now, let's say the average is maybe 6.75. If the seller helps you buy down your rate to a 2-1 buy down, you may get 4.75 for the first year, and then 1.75 reduction in rate for the second year. And then the third year, it would go back to the normal rate. Now that's all assuming that the rates are going to be what they are now when you close, or that they don't drop substantially where you could actually refinance. So if you buy in this market, and this is a really good time for buyers to buy, if you can get into this market either with cash or getting some seller concessions, you're probably going to be ahead of the game, because at the end of the day, if you get the house at a good price and possibly get a lower rate either through a buy down or some other way, then you can actually refinance when the market shows that your interest rates are much lower. It's a really good time to buy if you can. If you're selling, then consider giving a concession or offering a concession to a buyer to either help them pay for their agent, which they may have to do. They may have to pay their agent directly, or they may have to use that interest rate reduction in order to be able to afford that home. Also, what we're seeing is that sometimes it's harder and harder for people to invest in properties based on these interest rates, because at the end of the day, they have to be able to cover their costs, which could include interest and taxes and HOA fees and the insurance. So sometimes it's hard for people to do that, to make the numbers work. If they can pay cash or pay mostly cash, then they probably can get into this investment market. At the end of the day, real estate is probably the best investment you could ever make and the best way to accumulate wealth in your lifetime. Without it, you're just helping someone else pay their mortgage payment. So this is Linda Welsh from Linda Welsh Realty Group. Happy to talk to you about your purchase or sale. Or if you just want to know what your home is possibly worth or what the market is doing in your neighborhood, just let me know. Thanks. Have a great day.